as far as that final drive. You guys were in a position to win that game, to pull off that comeback, but there were those 3 drops that were pretty obvious on film that pretty much determined the outcome of that game. How will you approach your offense this week when it comes to bouncing back from that and just leaving it in the past or whatnot, and regaining their confidence when they have to make clutch plays like that in games such as the one against Florida State?
Well, 2 things I would say. One, as from a coordinator standpoint, I'd look at just a playlist maybe where I have a few plays where we maybe can trigger the ball a little quicker, maybe easier catches. I'm not making excuses for anybody, but you always in a situation like that want to try to have a few quick triggers that get our athletes the ball in space. That those are always successful plays in a 2-minute scenario, and we ran a couple of them. I can't make excuses for drops. Drops are drops, but I think it goes back to what I just heard Coach Brown say, and that's putting in the work during the week in a consistent basis. It's when you have a revenge game, or you have a rivalry game, or you have a championship caliber type game coming up. As a human being, you always really find a way to be motivated for those type of games, and it really shouldn't matter week to week what the motivation is with regards to how you practice. You got to practice at the same high level all the time. I always talk to the offensive guys about being 1 week better regardless of who we play or what's at stake in the ball game, which means you got to put in a Monday through Friday effort that we need so that you have more consistency. The game itself was a great example. We didn't execute very well as we needed to set the foundation for the game in the first half, and it wound up being too much to overcome. Even though we did a great job of getting back in the game and making a run at the game, we didn't do a good enough job of building the foundation in the first half. And so it was a little bit too much to overcome in the second half. And when it was time to make some plays at the end of the game in that last drive, we weren't able to make them.
Thanks, Coach.
Yes, sir.
All right, Andrew Jones, go ahead, sir.
Hey, Coach, how would you evaluate where your team is with respect to pass protection through 4 games?
Oh, I think probably that's the area that needs the most improvement. I think we are doing a really good job run blocking. We're doing a good job in play action protection. I think our straight drop back protection right now is probably the area of emphasis for the week. And when and how we choose to throw those drop back shots, I think will have a lot to do with keeping people off of Sam, how quickly, what plays I call in the drop back game with regards to how quickly Sam can get rid of the football. I've got to help the O-line and help Sam in that respect, so we're not sitting there holding. There's a lot of 7-on-7 skelly plays out there that can get open and can be prolific that are down the field throws off a drop back, but you've got to be able to protect for those. So I've got to be careful about which ones I call. We got to do a good job of getting the ball out of Sam's hand, and that improves your protection just from a quarterback standpoint. But from a technique standpoint and an assignment standpoint, that's going to be the area of focus this week heading into the NC State game.
You said either last week or the week before that you'd like to maybe target Garrett Walston a little bit more. Are you having to keep him back to help with pass protection a little bit more than you would like, or can you kind of take me through that?
Well, I think this game, obviously, we were able to get Garrett into the game plan more. We felt like the focus was going to be on our wide receivers, and it was, and that gave our running backs and our tight ends an opportunity to touch the ball more and be, contributing factors in some explosive plays in the passing game. So that was part of the plan because we figured there'd be an emphasis on our wide receivers. 26 did an excellent job of playing football on De'Ami Brown, and their secondary double covered a lot of people. They ran a lot of 2-man and tried to take the deep ball away early. And, that was why we were able to get our running game going early on. But I think that the tight end and the throw game to the RBs will be, you'll continue to see that if defenses choose to take the receivers out of the deep ball game.
Thank you.
All right, Greg Barnes, go ahead, Greg.
Hey, Phil, I know you script plays out to start a game and you also kind of read what the defense is giving you and go that route. As you mentioned, you kind of leaned on the run game early, especially the first half. Was that by design or was that just kind of reading what Florida State showed you?
Well, I think it's both. It was by design, and then that's what they gave us. So I think looking back on it from a play calling standpoint, I don't know if we would have done much different. But from a defensive structure, they played 2-man. They played it deep. They put the emphasis on coverage. They gave us a lighter box, and so we wound up calling more run plays early on in the game.
So just looking back, you were happy with kind of the play call situation in the first half.
Yeah, I think when we got down to about the 30, 35-yard line, we made some mistakes. We stalled. We missed a few things. I thought we moved the ball well in the first half. We ran the ball well in the first half, but we ran it a bunch. I think the disparity in run pass was pretty heavy in the first half, and but maybe from a play calling standpoint and an execution standpoint, we've got to do a better job with the finished drives. We've been pretty good red zone. And red zone wasn't as much of an issue here. We got into that fringe area in the 25 to 35-yard area, and we had a penalty, and we had a number of things that occurred in that area that kind of stalled us. And we're outside of fourth down situations where we're comfortable going for it, and so we had to punt a couple times from that area. And those are the drives you'd like to have back, and you'd like to capitalize with some scores, and I think that changes the entire complexion of the football game.
Great, thank you.
Hunter Nelson, go ahead, sir.
Hey, Coach. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Darius Newsome had 3 catches the first 2 weeks of the season, sort of bounced back last week, and then he had 4 this week. How have his spirits been, and how do you sort of look to get him going?
So I don't think there's any issue with Daz's spirits. I mean, I said last week in this same meeting, we are a very unselfish, unified team, and offensively, I don't think there are complaints or concerns about who gets the ball. We're all happy when Mike rips off a catch or a run. Same thing with Javonte. We're all happy when one of the guys wins deep. I think the skill group as a whole, and you need to be in this offense because we're going to spread the ball around to everybody. And I said this last week, there'll be games where some guys will have 6 and 7 catches, and there'll be games where they have 1 or 2. I think from an OC standpoint, I'd like to not have our premier guys with only 1 or 2 catches. You want to promote touches by your top people, but we've got some good ones, and so it's going to be take what they give us, but we are going to prioritize getting our top playmakers to football, particularly in situational offense and down in the red zone. So I think Daz is great with what we're doing, and I think he knows there'll be weeks where he's going to be able to go off a little bit more because of the matchup or the defensive approach. And when he's called on the block a lot, like he was last week with the way our running game was clicking, I think they're just as excited. The concern here, and this comes from Mac Brown right on down, the concern is winning the football game. And we're all very, very interested in doing the things that we got to do to win the ball game.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, Brendan Marks, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, thanks for taking the time. Two-part question. I wanted to ask one, what you sort of made and how you interpreted the interception from Sam, and also, given how few and far between those plays are for him, how do you and he sort of work through that? What's the process like of evaluating that, and how does he usually respond to that sort of evaluation?
And it was the interception you brought up. Is that what you asked me?
Yeah.
It's a situation that we talked about. That's something that we know defenses can do. Obviously, Sam would love to have that play back. He's not an excuse maker. He's an accountable. Typically, when he comes to the sideline, he's going to tell me what I'm going to tell him before I even say it. I mean, he knows. It was not a great decision to throw that out there, and he had his eyes on the linebacker, and didn't see the end initially and triggered it out there. And, and so we gave him the football. But I think that's every play that you run, you know what the negatives are, you know what the defaults are, you know what we're looking for. And you're right, those plays come few and far between. I'd be shocked if you saw him make that same mistake the rest of the year. He learns from those. He had one last year at Georgia Tech, where we threw a slant and it got picked, and he hadn't thrown one like that again because it was a defensive line dropping out. And those are good for Sam with regards to IDing certain situations that can create problems. There's no excuses made by saying he came off, he's accountable. We talked about it. We know what it is. There's no reason to lose our mind. It wasn't a good play. We both know that. And then so what happens is you go back to the bench and the focus is on the next drive, because the only way to erase a mistake or to rectify, that situation in the game is to make sure that you're executing on the next play or the next drive, and as much as it seems like a recruiting tool, the whole don't blank thing that I talk about all the time is as much about forgetting the last play, whether it's a really good one and being overconfident or it's a really bad one and letting it affect you negatively. We got to put that one behind us and focus in on the next play. And I think we do that on a pretty regular basis.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, last one for Coach Longo. CL Brown, go ahead, CL.
Hi, Phil. I was curious about the stall plays that you mentioned. What's kind of your approach to correcting them? Is it about the execution of the play itself, or is it more like about the timing and the rhythm of the play call at that point in a drive?
Well, from an assignment standpoint, our assignment grade overall as a team across the board, and then more specifically with us on offense, the level or the amount of missed assignments per game is really, really low. And that's where we want it. And the most drastic negative you can have on a play is complete missed assignment, because now you've got 10 guys doing their job and you've got one not doing it. And that one guy not doing it, especially if he's a primary player on the play, can affect the entire thing. So our missed assignments are down. And typically when we make a mistake, it's a decision-making process, by one of our skilled players, or it's a technique issue. So on Sunday, that's really what Sunday's about for us. We want to get our guys moving. We're going to get them stretched out. We want to get them worked out, and we'll get out on the field and we'll get on film and we'll talk about, those situations that pertain to our mistakes, and you rectify the technical issue or you rectify the decision making, and we talk about that same situation and how we want to handle it the next time. And that's how you take some of the negatives from Saturday's game, whether you win or lose, and you improve going forward, so that we don't have repetitive mistakes from week to week. Because if one defense last week had success doing something against us, we're probably going to see a copycat of it, and we're going to see that scenario again. Pressure beats you, all of a sudden we see that pressure a little bit more. A coverage stalls you, you're going to see that coverage a little bit more. So the most immediate thing to get done on Sunday is correct it, so that next time we're in that situation, we have more success. And so if we do see it by a future defense, we're able to handle it in a better manner than we did the first time.
Okay. And when you have a pair of running backs that are as even as Carter and Williams, under what scenario would there ever be kind of like in a game situation, a workhorse, so to speak, where somebody maybe is having more success or something, but you just go with one of them more and they get more carries than typically their even distribution?
So I would say each year is a little different based on your personnel. Sometimes you have a 1, a 2, and a 3, and that's legitimately where they are in the depth chart. So you're going to play the 1 as much as you can, and then you play the 2 when you need to spell them, and you get to the 3 if you need him, or if he has a special talent, like in a short yardage situation or pass protection or something. We're spoiled this year, CL, because we've got 2 guys that both catch the ball really well. They both pass protect really well. They both run inside and run outside very well. And so they're very different backs. Probably Michael's going to make you miss a little more, and Javonte's going to run over you a little bit more. We've all seen that. They are different running backs, but they both are extremely versatile, and they're able to do everything that we ask them to do. And so really the rotation, it's not even this year about who's hot and who's not, because they both have been so productive, right? So, and I've said this before, I think Coach Gillespie, as well as anybody that I've been with at the running back position, does an incredible job with two talented players of rolling them through and keeping them fresh. And that's probably more important this year with those guys than situational offense, because they can both do what we need. It's more about, let's get the freshest guy out there so we can get the most out of both of them when they're playing.